Good morning. Good morning. As you just heard, I am Margaret Lowe, and I'm president of AtlanticLIVE, and I'm so happy to welcome you all this morning to our third annual Race and Justice Summit. We launched this undertaking 2 years ago in Washington, D.C., when Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote an Atlantic cover story called "The Black Family in the Age of Mass Incarceration." And then last year, we were in Los Angeles to explore justice, access, and equity in the country's demographic bellwether. And now we're delighted to be here with all of you in Charlotte. So you might ask this morning, why did we choose to come here this year? Some facts on the ground, familiar to most or all of you, but worth repeating. Charlotte is one of the fastest growing cities in the country. Last year, 109 people moved into this town every single day, nearly 40,000 people in 1 year. The city's economy is bursting with possibility and accounts for nearly a third of the state's economic activity. But like so many American cities, not all of Charlotte's residents have experienced the fruits of this success. In fact, quite the opposite. 2 years ago, a group of researchers from Harvard and Stanford ranked the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area dead last in terms of upward mobility, meaning that low-income kids growing up in Charlotte, many of them kids of color, have a near impossible climb to make it out of poverty. The finding struck a nerve. And then, a little over a year ago, Keith Lamont Scott was shot and killed by a police officer here, adding to an already long list of police shootings of black men across the country. People took to the streets of Charlotte for days afterward to protest the treatment of people of color at the hands of law enforcement. And in the year since the protest, there's been a great deal of soul-searching and conversation about what it would take to create a more equitable Charlotte. And that will be the focus of our conversation today. We will begin this morning zooming in on one piece of that story, the criminal justice system, where 3 out of 4 people in the local jail are African American or Hispanic, though these groups make up just a third of the local population. Today, and this conversation we're about to have would not be possible without the support of the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, the Annie E. Casey Foundation, and Bank of America. We are very, very grateful for that support. And with that, it gives me enormous pleasure to welcome Andrew Plepler, the bank's Global Head of Environmental, Social, and Governance, to share a few thoughts. Andrew.
Thank you, Margaret. You get cheered when you're the underwriter, so we appreciate that. We at Bank of America, we don't always get cheers, so we're very grateful for that. It is a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to underwrite this conversation. I'm a little nervous. My rabbi's in the audience, Rabbi Judy Schindler. So when we have our leader of faith in the audience, we have to be on our game because you can't screw up when your faith leader is in the house. This is a really important conversation to have in Charlotte, as we know. People ask, why would Bank of America be associated with this conversation? The answer is actually pretty simple. We all have a stake in more civil discourse in our country, now more than ever, in solving what have been intractable problems for years. And if we don't do that, we are looking at a very challenging future in our communities, and very challenging places to do business, and very challenging places for our employees to live. And so we have a stake in the outcome of this conversation, and we need to participate in it. And the role of the private sector in helping to address some of these challenges and being 50th out of 50 in economic mobility is essential to the success of our company and essential to who we are as a corporate citizen. And if we don't seriously engage in this conversation in a way that goes beyond what we've done historically. It's one thing to sit and have a conversation one morning. It's another thing to actually roll up your sleeves and solve some of these problems over the long term. And that's what we're going to need to do. We're going to need to be at this work. This did not happen overnight. It won't get solved overnight. And we need to have some patience to get resolution. And that's our commitment as a company. We look forward to partnering with some of the great leaders in this room And coming out of today, the real test will be whether we sustain the momentum of the conversation that started here this morning. And that is imperative to the success of this community and success of the country at large. So we look forward to being your partner. We're thrilled to be here with the MacArthur Foundation, the Casey Foundation, the Atlantic, who are truly wonderful partners and great thought leaders. And we know that some great ideas will come out of today's conversation. So thank you for being here. We appreciate it.